Thank you very much, Mark Mathieu. That was an inspiring talk. But I have a bit of a public service announcement, actually, before we move on to our next speaker. There were huge, I can say queue in Canada, can't I? I live in the States. I feel like you know queue. There were huge queues as we came in. Lots of people stood in line, and some people were permitted to come in without a badge. Please, could those people, at their earliest convenience, go and collect your badges. They're ready now. You'll need them for tomorrow. You'll need them for the tracks and the workshops. So, yeah, just encourage those who are here without a badge to remember to go and collect their badges from the registration area as you come in. But now, moving on, I'm delighted to welcome this guest back again. It's Krish Banerjee, who's the Managing Director for Data and AI at Accenture. Krish, if you haven't heard him before, has more than 20 years of experience working across tons of different industries as an advisor to C-suites, helping them really shape their data and analytics journey and driving value through large and complex transformation programs. Today, he's going to be sharing his insights on the topic of human by design, how AI unleashes the next level of human potential. So, without further ado, please welcome Krish Banerjee.
Good morning. Good morning, Montreal. And thank you to World Summit AI for bringing this back to Canada and back to Montreal one more time. So round of applause to the City of Montreal and World Summit AI. In the last 3 years, obviously, a lot has changed and a lot has been spoken about AI. And Accenture is proud to be partnering with World Summit AI for all these 3 years. And we have been talking about this not only just in Canada and Americas, but also globally in other parts of Europe and other segments of World Summit AI that has been happening. I came back to this stage first time in 2022 and talked about business of AI. And 2023, it was about how we are actually using AI for good and doing this for the society and the community. And it feels like a complete trilogy now to come back and talk about what we are going to do with humans, most importantly about us. Now, in the last 3 years, one thing hasn't changed, which is I'm always between you and the break. So this is my slot, and I'm always between you and the break, so I'll try to keep it quick and make sure that you get to what you have to do after that. So moving on. Is this visible on the screen? OK, perfect. So there's been a lot that has been spoken about AI in the past year, and there's numerous examples. I mean, you probably could have another 1 or 2 pages of this. And our friend AI has been working really hard in the last year to prove its worth. And I don't think it has to do any more work than that. We have all now got the point that it works, it has value, it's relevant. Obviously, it needs its own kind of boundaries and regulations. But I think we have proved the point with the numerous examples that we have all seen in the past year or so. However, still, there's a lot that has been spoken about regulation and skepticism about what it does to individuals and humans and the risk that we have. And at Accenture, we do a global survey every year. We call it the Technology Vision. We have been doing this for 20+ years, and we have been fairly accurate in predicting the technology trends that will be more forward-looking. And we go and talk to a few thousand people, globally, business leaders. And what was really interesting is that in the last year, 95% of business leaders that we talked to said they're really going to invest in technology that is going to make it more human, because they believe that actually it will unlock the human potential and their business capabilities way more than what has been happening in the past. So there is a definite proof point to that. Now, what we're going to do in the next maybe couple of pages is talk about a bit of a dichotomy that exists between technology growth and what we see about, skepticism. So obviously, we have all seen this. If you're tracking the last 50 years of technology revolution, whether it's from personal computers to internet to the mobile phones, 1 trillion spend in cloud computing, we now believe that there will be about $140 billion of investment in Gen AI by 2027. So there's obviously the technology evolution is moving faster than we can all probably consume. Yet, if we think about it, there's skepticism that has always been there. There has been skepticism, whether it was from when the printing press first started, or electricity, or when the telephone was called the instrument of the devil, or from an internet, when we were all kind of under the computer phobia and thinking about whether this will make us any more intelligent or not. However, the proof is there, and technology has helped in a number of ways over the past hundreds of years. It has helped solve poverty problems. It has helped solve global crises. It has helped solve other societal and computer challenges and community problems. Just an example of digital economy growing 2.5% or 2.5 times more than what our physical GDP is growing globally. Our life expectancy has improved over the last couple of hundred years from 29 years to 71 years, and our literacy rate. So just kind of thinking about that, embracing technology has helped over the hundreds of years that we have all been kind of watching. Now, what does that mean going forward? We've been all tracking this curve in some way or shape, and this is now an inflection point where we sit. We are sitting at an inflection point where if you map human capabilities with AI capabilities, we are at a point where you will see that by 2016, we have actually already surpassed human capabilities in speech recognition, in handwriting recognition. In 2022, we have actually passed the point of language understanding, reading comprehension, and kind of moving further along as we move. So what does that mean? That means that we have to embrace that technology is going to unlock the human potential beyond what we have actually seen so far in most of our lifetime and what we have been working with this. So that comes us to a bit of a circle of technology and human. And when I think about it, it actually is a self-feeding circle of technology making us better and making us more enhanced, and then we as humans go and improve technology. And that's kind of the interesting part of this. Like, how do we make sure that that circle continues? Because then this becomes a fulfilling kind of a commitment between us and technology of making sure that we are both keeping ourselves honest to each other. That brings us to the 4 trends that at Accenture we saw this year from technology and AI. I'm going to talk about each of them in a minute. But essentially, this is all about how technology, AI, and humans work together. The first one is about how knowledge is changing, how the whole idea of knowledge and how we have access to knowledge now very differently and in a way that we have never had access. So perfect combination of human with knowledge is making us way more powerful than what we have been. We have examples of Toyota, who is now including within the cars a knowledge management system where you can actually interact and ask questions like, why my engine light is on, or that you don't probably have to go into the manuals and search for it. So it's a voice-based, interaction on board within the car. Or it's a platform like Writer, who is a content management platform based on AI, is coming up with ways you can actually identify AI-based content and do fact checks. So examples like that is going to help us be better combining knowledge and humans. And you have all seen that how search is changing to more of synthesizing. So that's the other angle of how knowledge will become extremely important. This is one of my favorites. I think our future is depending on how we will have these agents going forward. Like our prosperity, our kind of growth individually as human beings will depend on obviously everything that we measure ourselves by the matrix of economics and other societal dynamics. But it will depend on, do I have those powerful agents? And these agents are now going to change how we interact. We are already seeing that agents are talking to the other agents, and this is going to change B2B, B2C, like it has never been in the past. We're seeing like NVIDIA has come up with, in partnering with a number of universities, has launched an embodied agent which actually is playing Minecraft. So they have seeded with some skills, and then they send it to play Minecraft, and it's learning skills as it goes through the barriers. So there are examples of this is happening already, and continue to happen as we move forward. So this is an important point as you think about your business, your individual, what agents are you going to have that is going to multiply the productivity and the efficiency that we as individual humans probably cannot achieve just by ourselves. We have all seen kind of the metaverse, the AI and the AR and the VR, and I think we all have our own experience and skepticism and concerns with that, but I think AI is changing that completely. Thinking about how you can actually use immersive technologies with AI-driven capabilities will become extremely important and more prevalent going forward. Like one of the museums in Paris is using this to actually show people how you can use a Snapchat-based visualization of the interiors of the museum driven by AI and driven by kind of your own personal preferences. So this is a combination of what we have seen in the past from a metaverse, from an AR, VR perspective, but augmenting that with AI and augmenting that with insights-driven capabilities and will become more prevalent as we go forward. I was reading something, and it was very interesting. Like, we as human beings, we produce 1.7 MB of data every second. We talk about systems that create unnecessary data, but think about it. Like, we create 1.7 megabytes of data every second. That translates to, I think, 54 terabytes every year, 147 gigabytes a day, or something like that. It's an enormous amount of data that we all produce just by walking around and just breathing every day. So how do we mine that information is extremely important. And that is going to be through all the technologies that is now combining AI with sensory and other kind of human and interactions that we have, and combining that into knowledge that we can produce. Like one of the examples I found very interesting, L'Oreal is using neurotech to identify how we react to fragrances. Like how do you react to a perfume? Like you'll be putting on something like this that you see on the screen, and then you'll probably be tasting some of the fragrances and then figuring out like, what's the reaction to that. Very cool. Like, the picture here, this is very real. The Meta glasses from Ray-Ban, it has AI-built capabilities. So this will become more and more common. So next year when I come back, I hope to kind of check how many of us has actually been immersed into this going forward. Yeah. Sorry? Okay. Oh, okay. Now, we have been doing like 700 projects globally. And there's a number of things that we have learned from these projects that obviously extremely important in the last year or so that we've been working. So Accenture globally, we've been working, and these are the industries that we see mostly adopting Gen AI and AI over the past 12 to 18 months. important to have a human design playbook. What that means is that you need to start with value. You need to lead with the value. And one of my personal favorites is that we need to drop the word use cases. So if there's one commitment that I can ask of you is to say, I'm not going to use the word use cases going forward because we are maniacally becoming focused on use cases. I think instead we should think about value and how do we lead with value and how do we lead with purpose and intent. Building a digital core is extremely important. Using AI and Gen AI requires a very different kind of an architecture, or at least a change of things that you are doing, and then making sure that you have an intelligent platform and all of that. The talent angle connects with everything that we talked about from a human perspective, and how do you use the power of talent and the worker and the workforce and then change that to bring the business capabilities that you haven't had so far. Closing the loop with generative AI and with responsible use of that and use of principles that will not just stifle innovation, but also kind of help us move forward. And then the most important thing at the center is continuous reinvention. It's not a one-shot thing. It's not a one use case. It's not a one POC or a one MVP, but you need to have a culture and a mechanism of doing that across the value chain of your industry, your business, whatever you're doing. It has to be done in a way that is more continuous and across all of these segments. Quickly, an example, we looked at one of the CPG industries, and we took about, let's say, 100 people that are doing work across a number of different areas. And once we start applying AI and Gen AI capabilities, we have actually seen that if you look across their sales and account management and their customer insights and growth, if there were 100 people, you can actually extract about 35 people that can be redirected to a different type of work. And there's all sorts of details here on this page. We can talk about it later. But it shows how the work is changing, how you're transforming work, how you're doing things differently, and then how the workforce has now shifted to different types of roles. And what do you need to do to your workers for training, for upskilling, for different types of enablement? So we are looking at every problem that we are working with our clients in different industries across this. How is the work changing? How is the workforce of the future is going to look like? And what does it mean for your workers? What do you need to provide your workers? One of the statistics that we have found through our research is that 95% of people actually recognize that there's a need of people enablement and training and changes and all of that in their organization. But only 5% has actually acted on it. Only 5% of organizations have a formal training program or a way to upskill their people. So there is definitely an opportunity there, and something, again, I'll come back. I'm making a list of things that I'll check next year when I come back. I'll quickly go through this. So we have examples, and we have evidences of how the human plus AI interaction is already kind of shaping, whether it's Flow, which is coming up with optimal kind of flow cognitive states for knowledge workers, Hive, and risk-based framework, Alto, agents. And it's really how that cycle that we talked about, that the tools have actually been shaped by us, but now it comes back and shapes us as we move forward. So a few things that I would like to kind of take away from our discussion. One, the information age is over. Like, we are past the information age. We're at a point where technology is now trying to learn how humans work, how humans react, how we see. In the past, it actually has been the other way around. Like, human has been trying to learn technology, and human has been trying to understand what's the next app, what's the next, change coming in technology. But now technology is also trying to learn how human kind of see, how human read, how human sense something. So that's extremely important that we remember that. And it will become important how we acknowledge, how we adopt, and how we kind of embrace that going forward, it's going to be an human plus shared future for all of us. Thank you. I think we'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Krish. We're going to open it out to questions, actually. Do we have, raise your hand, we have some roving mics, and don't be shy. Oh, we have a hand here. Please be patient while our roving mic makes its way to you, just in the center. If you feel happy, introduce yourself, say where you're from, and then, yeah, address your question to Krish.
Sure. Yes.
Hi, my name is Dan. Thank you so much for that presentation. I had a weird feeling when I saw Meet My Agent.
Yes.
So in the future, I'll have a digital Dan that I can say, order something from Uber Eats, make sure I like it. Go to the grocery store and get the things that I want. What does that mean for my personal growth if I have a digital agent that's doing all the human things?
It's a great question. I think the way I would look at it is that it's not taking away from everything that you are doing. It's multiplying and kind of multiplexing the capacity and the capability that you have now. So it's not taking away from the point that you can still walk down to the grocery store if you have to. But maybe the time that you're not spending ordering that food or walking to the grocery and picking up yourself, you're doing something else that's probably more higher value than probably what you have to do otherwise. So if you don't have anything else to do, then go and pick up your grocery at the store for sure. But if you have other things to do that is higher value, then you have a way to multiplex yourself with other capabilities that the agent brings.
Oh, and we have another over here. I can always find better things to do than grocery shopping. Patrick,
Hi.
introduce yourself.
Thank you. Patrick Taillon, City of Laval. I was wondering, why do we need to create AI or robots that look like human? What is behind that? Why do we need to?
No.
Sorry, could you say it a
Yeah,
little louder?
why do we need to create robots or AI artifact that look like human? What is behind the scene about that?
So I don't think we need to create robots that looks like human. The point here is we need to create capabilities that augments the human potential. So whether it looks physically like humans or not, I don't think that, to me at least, is not important. Like, yes, there's a need for that in certain industries. If it's in manufacturing, if you're talking about assembly line and all that, there is a specific need for that. But what we talked about so far is not about just mimicking it physically, but it's about how do we augment with AI and AI-like capabilities the human potential that we all bring otherwise.
Okay, thank you, Krish. I believe we have, I'm being told there's another question here. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so
Good
much for
morning.
the presentation. My name is Lassie, and I'm from Delaware in the US. I work for a software coding boot camp. You mentioned that a lot of the organizations and companies are do not have a mechanism for upskilling and reskilling. That's what we've been doing for the past 9 years, but we are at a crux right now. What do we do? What do we train for? We've been doing full stack development and data engineering with Python, but what is next? We're looking at AI. We want to remain the go-to for training, for providing great talent. What is that going to be, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's no one answer to what should we learn. Like, I get this question a lot from people in Accenture as well. Like, what should I learn? And I usually say that, just start with something. Like, get your hands on something. Start thinking about the problem you're solving. That's a skill that we often don't teach. Like, we teach full stack development and all the technology, but how do we, back to the point of leading with value, how do you actually solve a problem? And then all the things that you bring in your toolkit is useful, but thinking about the problem-solving mindset and how you're actually addressing and purpose and an intent. It could be a technology intent, it could be a business intent, it could be any of the above. I think is an important skill that we try to teach or grow in our people in Accenture.
And I think we have time for another question here. Gentleman in the front row.
Kevin Jones, Indiana University. Good to see you again. Glad you're back. Okay, here is the dilemma. most of the people in this audience obviously are receptive to the types of changes that you're talking about. But there's a whole swath of people who are still learning about ChatGPT. And so when we talk about AI agents and things of that nature, they look at you like you are crazy. They don't understand how it's going to work, and they look at it from the perspective of, this is going to replace me. What do we say to them, and what can we do to bring along more people to understand some of what is transforming right around them?
Yep. No, great point. I think that's something that it's not even just the people that you mentioned that probably has not caught up to this, but even a lot of our people who are in the middle of this has a question. So I would say a few things. Number one, we have seen this movie play out in the past, like one of my pages that we saw, right? You know, whether it's starting from the printing press all the way to the age of the internet, we have seen this happening in the past. So we have enough proof points that this will be actually happening and changing the way we interact. So it's our choice whether we would like to adopt or not. And we have all seen that eventually we will be adopting. So number one. Number two, we are not doing this irresponsibly, or we should not be doing this irresponsibly. Like, we should be doing this in a way that's responsible, and we should be explaining that and be transparent about how are we doing it explainable. We have an accountability to people to explain, hey, this is how I'm using your data. This is how I'm building the insights. Like, all the things that we are hearing globally about explainability and ethical use of that, 100%, I think we have an obligation and accountability to that. So that's the number two thing. And then number three, I would also remind people about that it is extremely important that we understand how this is not something that you will have to kind of think about as a step change. Like, this will eventually come as a very organic diffusion as we are working through our last 12, 18 months. Like, we are probably not even recognizing things that are happening to us that is already AI. So you don't have to do a huge extra effort. Just make sure that you're kind of adopting things that are coming to you. Now, I'm not talking about all of us who are probably way deep into AI, but people who may not, like my grandparents probably do not have enough access to AI as we all have, right? But they don't have to do something like, tomorrow I'm going to learn AI. That's not how I would recommend. But it's about the culture and the mindset of being open and adopting that is important. So those are the three things that I would kind of provide as a guidance. Okay.
Thank
Good?
you very much. That's all. Please give a huge round of applause
Thank
to
you,
Krish
everyone.
Banerjee from Accenture.
Look
Thank
forward
you
to be
very
back.
much.